You're listening to Big World Network.
Skyfire, Season 2, Episode 9. Written and read by Arthur W. Johnson. Seamus discovered the real difficulty of the trip when they reached their first portage. With the boys' need for constant attention, Bright Moon was unable to be of much help. That meant unloading the canoe, hauling it to the next waterway, making the return trip for their belongings and his family, and then returning with the canoe alone. The longer the portage, the more grueling that portion of the trip. After one such trek, they chose to make camp and resume the next day. "How much farther do you think, husband?" "By the direction of the flow of this river, I would say we are about halfway. I don't think I'll have to battle the current any more. That will be a relief. My arms are ready to give out between the paddling and the portage." "The boys are asleep. I will make you something to eat." "Wait, my love. We need some fresh meat for a change. Let me find some game instead." "If that is what you want, we will wait here." Seamus rested for a short while, then slipped quietly into the woods with his old musket. He had bought the musket, the lead press, the powder horn from an old man after leaving the Ohio Canal. The man lived in a small town and had no further use for it, but he did need the money for whiskey. It seemed ancient. The man said he had received it from a veteran of the Revolution, and it was already the 1830s. Seamus had used it several times, and it was about as accurate as he could want. He saw movement out of the corner of his eye and slowly raised the gun as he turned. He stopped short when he saw the doe with the fawn. He could not shoot either of them. That would be criminal. He lowered the muzzle and watched as they grazed peacefully, unaware of his presence. After they slipped behind some brush, he turned away in search of other prey. "You were so long, husband." "I saw a doe and her fawn, my love," he said as he handed her the gutted rabbit. "I couldn't shoot either of them. Besides, what would we have done with that much meat?" "You did the right thing. Families should not be broken apart. This will be a good meal," she said as she began removing the pelt. "I can make good shoes for the boys for their first winter from the skin." She looked around him and asked, "Where is the rest?" "The rest what? How many rabbits do you want?" "No, husband, where is the rest of this rabbit? The insides." "Why would you want the innards?" he asked with a puzzled look on his face. "Oh, husband, you have so much to learn about my people's ways. We use everything." "I didn't know. I tossed the innards into the tree limbs for the ravens." "What are ravens, husband?" "Those big, black, noisy birds." "Those are crows, and it is best not to feed them." "I thought they looked smaller than the ravens we had back in Ireland. Why shouldn't I feed them?" "They are pranksters and will follow you and play tricks on you for being kind to them." "You have some funny ideas, my love, but I will remember that in the future. Look, here they come already. They followed your scent. Don't leave anything lying loose when you go to sleep or it will be gone in the morning." "You're serious about them playing pranks, aren't you?" She nodded as she put the rabbit-laden spit over the fire. "They would take this meat from the fire if we walked away. They are thieves." "I could throw rocks at them or shoot them if you wish." "You mustn't harm them, husband. They also bring good luck, and if they are harmed, it will turn to bad luck." "There is a bit of irony for you. Don't feed them or they will harass you, but don't harm them or you'll really be in trouble. And I thought my people had some crazy notions." He looked up at the growing congregation in the trees and winced at the noise they were making. "I'm sorry I brought this upon us, my love." "No matter. If you ignore them, most will lose interest and leave. A few will stay to spread the word if anything looks worthwhile." "All the same, I am sorry," he said as he turned to spit. "This is beginning to smell wonderful. What did you do?" "I learned a few things from Waving Grass. She used some things on meat that my people didn't think of. This was my first chance to try it out. I hope it tastes as good as it smells." After they thoroughly enjoyed their meal, Bright Moon said, "Husband, I have been thinking, would you like some help with the paddling and the portages? You have been working so hard to get us there. What do you propose we do with the boys? We could take time to make 2 cradle boards, and it would give you a chance to rest." He thought for a moment and then said, "I've never made a cradle board, but I've seen them. You could show me what to do, couldn't you?" They set about collecting willow limbs while the boys slept, and under the tree they relived their first meeting under another willow. The passion was greater because there were none of the inhibitions of that first meeting. Afterward they smiled contentedly as they finished collecting the limbs they needed. Bright Moon showed him how to curve the larger limbs for the frame, then lace the smaller ones in to make it firm. It is easy to do, and we'll work together, Bright Moon said. Could we use some of the furs? I don't see why not. It's not like we're going to make a fortune on them anyway. As they worked, she said, We still have not named the boys. I was thinking of Light from the Moon for our son, he said with a smile at his own cleverness. Too long. How about Fahey for your father, or Robin for your friend? I like Robin. Shall we call him that? It is a good name, yes. They wrapped the framework with beaver pelts, doubled over to provide both warmth and softness for the boys to rest against. Are you sure you're not of my people? She asked. That is as good a cradle board as I have seen before. Yours is pretty good, too, he said. He looked around and said, We could stay here for a few days if you like. She lolled back on her elbows and looked around, too. It is nice here. Would you mind not hurrying? Not at all, my love. Now I'll show you a trick I know. He began chopping and hacking with the hatchet he had found in the shed during the winter, and when he was through, he had a fairly decent lean-to shelter for their stay. It is nice, husband. May I make a cover from more of the pelts? Yes, and while you're doing that, I have another project to work on. Project, husband? What is that? A project is like a task or a job. I'll show you when I'm through. They set to their separate tasks, she cooing to the boys, who were sleeping in the lean-to, and he whistling an old Irish ballad as he whittled away at some of the shavings left from the hewing out of the lean-to. I like the sound you make with your mouth, she said. How do you do that? Do your people not whistle? Whistle? Is that what you call it? Yes, whistling is done by blowing air through puckered lips like this, and he proceeded to demonstrate with a lot of trills and grace notes. It is so beautiful, she said. Like a bird. No, like several birds. You try, he said. She puckered up and blew, but made no whistling sound. Try moving your tongue around as you blow. She did as he instructed and jumped when the sound came out. I like that, but it tickles, she said, and went on to do it a few more times. Now try moving your tongue and tightening and loosening your lips. She found that with a little effort she could warble like the thrush in the brush. I will be able to whistle to the boys when they get restless. Will you teach me to make the songs you were making? I will, my love. What have you been making? He held up one of the fish hooks he had carved, and she stared at it with questioning in her eyes. They are for catching fish, he told her. She took it from him and acted out scooping the fish out of the water with it. I don't think you will get close enough to the fish for this to work. No, not like that. You tie the end to a piece of twine. Twine? What is that? He thought for a moment, and then picked a piece of thread from his raveled sleeve and held it up for her to see. This is thread. Twine is several strands of thread twisted together to make it stronger. She went over to where she had cut several strips from the pelts to lash the hides over the lean-to and returned, handing them to him. They're too wide, my love, but you've got the right idea. She proceeded to slit them into thinner strips and hand them to him. He tied the ends together as she handed them over. He then took a medium-sized willow branch from those left over and tied the loose end of the line to the thin end of the branch. She watched as he turned over a stone, collected a grub, and stuck it on the hook. He crawled out onto a low branch that hung over the water and lowered the hook and the grub into the water. The wooden hook floated on its side on the surface. Of course it floats, he chided himself. It's wood. I'll have to weight it, he said as he crawled back along the limb. He tied another length of hide to the hook and found a suitable rock to secure the end. This time the hook sank below the surface as it was intended. As they waited and watched the fish circling the bait, Bright Moon said, My people would just spear them as they swam by. I doubt that I am that good with a spear, my love. It would be faster. Where is that philosophical notion of waiting? Just then there was a tug on the line. Seamus was able to set the hook and land a good-sized walleye. He set the pole aside and removed the hook from the fish's mouth. As he handed the catch to Bright Moon, he said, This is how I learned to fish in Ireland, and it works well for me. It is very clever, husband. Well, they chatted about differences between his world and hers. She scaled and gutted the fish, poked a stick through it lengthwise, and leaned it over the fire that Seamus had started. They had become a team, observing what the other was doing and making the necessary moves to balance the action. He smiled at the thought of two people from such different backgrounds could become so well suited to each other. Once again she used some of the herbs Waving Grass had taught her about, and they enjoyed a tasty meal. When they were through, she heaved the remains of guts and scales and bones into the fire. What, you don't have a use for those? He teased. They would go into the soil to make corn better if we were at my village, but we will not carry them home with us. They will stink soon. Also, she said, pointing at the trees, we don't want the crows to stay. Aye, that is true enough. He fell silent for a moment as he looked around them. Finally, he looked directly at her and said, what if this were home? There are fish in the river. There is game in the forest all around us. There are berries and herbs. Why do we have to move on or go back? She looked at him in amazed silence for a moment. Then she too looked around and really took in her surroundings. She finally broke the silence as she stood. I like it here. We can make this our home if you like it too. Oh, love of my life, I like it very much. With you by my side, what more could I ask? They rested until the boys began to stir. While Bright Moon attended to their needs, Seamus pulled the canoe farther from the river's rippling current and unloaded the rest of their gear. He upended the canoe to keep rain from filling it on the off chance that they would need it in the future. With that task finished, he leaned back on his elbows and watched her gentle ways with the boys while whistling her favorite tune. I think I'll build a lodge under the willow tree, love. No, husband, you must not. Why? Fire from the smoke hole is not good under a tree. That makes sense. I should have thought of that. The willow is close when we want it, she said with a wink. She had learned that wink from him, and he thought it was charming coming from her. You have a way with them, he said, nodding at the boys who were looking around in curiosity. They seldom cry or make a fuss. It is not safe for them to cry. It would bring the wolves or the coyotes, or worse, the cougar. In Ireland, it seems the bairns are always squalling about something. What do the women do with them? They put them in their cradles while they do their chores. They're close enough to hear them if they cry. We keep them with us and know when they are about to cry so that they don't need to. That also sounds more civilized. I've learned so much from you already. But you taught me to whistle, she said as she proceeded with a tune which enthralled the boys.
Music by Kevin MacLeod.
You're listening to Big World Network.